Example number 2, highlighting learning target number 1.6b. Study the expression and think about the concepts that you would use to fully simplify it. Hit pause, work through the example, and once you've completed simplifying it fully, hit play and we'll work through it together. When we consider simplifying this expression, we know that we're going to use the concepts revolving around GEMDAS and combining like terms. So we'll begin with using GEMDAS to give us a procedure or a process to work with the order of operations to fully simplify the expression. So GEMDAS referring to our groupings first. In this case, we have two groupings with parentheses. And so the way that we are going to simplify this grouping is by distributing the value outside the parenthesis that is being multiplied by it. And so when we distribute, we're going to distribute the 3 because the 3 is being multiplied by the grouping or the parentheses. And also we know that there is an implied 1 outside of the second set of parentheses. And so we will distribute the full term -1 into the parentheses. And as you may recall, the distributive property implies multiplication, and we must distribute to all terms inside the grouping. And so we will be multiplying, in this case, the 3 times the 2x and the 3 times the -3, as well as -1 times 2 and -1 times 3x. So let's begin by first dropping down the terms that we have yet to work with or simplify. Rewrite our groupings using the distributive property. And again, I'm going to use parentheses here to imply the multiplication. So now we have -1 times 2, -1 times 3x, and then we're going to drop down the 2 because we have yet to work with it. Second in the order of operations are exponents or simplifying exponents. We do not have any exponents that have a power greater than 1, and so we'll continue to the next step in the order of operations, which is to multiply from left to right. So working from the left to the right, we see that we would have 5x times 2, 3 times 2x, 3 times -3, -1 times 2, -1 times 3x, and then the 2 is just an addition at the end of the expression, and we have yet to work with addition and subtraction. And so simplifying these terms, we know that when we multiply a term with a variable, that we are just going to multiply the coefficient so that we have 5 times 2, which is 10, and then the variable is just going to remain as is. We have 3 times 2x, so multiplying the 3 times the 2 is 6. The variable remains as is. +3 times -3 is -9. -1 times 2 is -2. -1 times 3x is -3x. And then the +2, once again, is just brought down to the next line. The next step in the order of operations is division. We do not have any terms being divided, so we can move to our next 2 steps, and I'm going to combine these as addition and subtraction because the concept of subtraction being adding a negative. And so we're going to consider subtraction as adding the negative. So we're going to work the additions and subtraction operations together, moving from left to right. But in order to do that, we must identify our like terms. And remember, like terms have the exact same variable raised to the exact same exponent. And so we have a 10x, which is an implied plus 10x because we want to keep our sign with the term. And so we have a variable x to the first power. Looking at the 6x, it is also an x raised to the first power. And then finally, we have a negative 3x, and the x is raised to the first power. So we have the variable x raised to the first power in all of these terms. Looking at our next term that is yet to be grouped in a like term grouping, we have a negative 9. This is a constant. It does not have a variable, and so our other terms that do not have a variable are the negative 2 and the positive 2. So we have successfully grouped all of our like terms. Now we need to combine them. And so combining the circles, or our terms with the variable x, we have addition, or adding the negative in the case of subtraction, which means that we're just going to take our coefficients and we're going to combine our coefficients. The variable remains the same. So 10 plus 6, so 10 plus 6 is 16. 16 minus 3, or added to negative 3, is 13, and our variable remains the same. And so just to show you, we have our 10 plus 6 is 16 minus 3. Working with our constants, we have minus 9 plus a negative 2, which is the same as subtracting 2, so that's minus 11. Minus 11 plus 2 is minus 9. So we have 13x minus 9. So now the question we have to ask ourselves when we are complete, when we have fully simplified it, do we have any remaining like terms? Again, that's the question you always ask yourself. Are there any remaining like terms? And in this case, no, the expression is fully simplified. And recall, this is an expression because it does not have an equal sign. Therefore, we can only simplify it. We simplify expressions, we solve equations. This particular example does not have an equal sign, therefore it is an expression, and so we fully simplify the expression until there were no remaining like terms to be combined, and all the groupings have been removed, and we have fully worked through the order of operations.